Hello everyone. Oh my goodness, the light is too much, I think. Never mind, I will continue. Just want to tell you that I read all of your comments, and most of them, the great majority, are great, congratulating me and expressing your thanks and so on. I just received one, a few days ago, I think 2 days ago, saying thank you. This is a comment on a video I did quite a few days ago, I suppose, about 2 weeks ago. Behold, the sowers of sorrows inflicting pain. I don't remember what that was about, but the comment is, thank you so much to meditate upon, and I could be listening for more and more. I am a homeschool mommy trying to pass down the knowledge to my kids. God bless you and thank you for your videos. Much love. Okay, so I thought, a mother who is homeschooling, and I thought, great, I know where to go. I know where to go about this. And where I went was to a philosopher who wrote this particular book that I'm going to share with you. A summary of it, obviously. The book was written in 1850. The philosopher is, his name is Jaime Balmes. He died very young, at the age of 36, tuberculosis, I think. Anyway, it was one of these geniuses, that he had a doctorate in philosophy, a doctorate in theology, a doctorate in law, doctorate in practically everything. Economics, not a doctorate, but he wrote books on not only philosophy and theology, but politics, economics. He actually anticipated Marx, replies to Marx, who was at the time, Marx had written the Communist Manifesto in 1848, so he was around, but he actually anticipates questions about the theory of surplus value and so on, that Karl Marx didn't develop that until later on in Das Kapital. Anyway, this was a genius of a man, okay, and he was very actively involved in politics, and then he became a Catholic priest. So much of the political activity and everything else was out, but he continued writing books. And I think I see the fact that obviously when you preach sermons, you cannot be sort of arguing on points, obscure points of theology and things like that. Okay, so you have to be able to say perhaps complex things in a very natural, simple way, and that is the way he writes. Is excellent. Jaime Balmes. Now, this book that I'm going to cover with you, well, not the book, as I said. It's not a very long book, but it's not a tiny little one either. But I just cover, the introduction and, a summary of the first and second chapters. I mixed it all up, sort of a summary of it. But you might see it in translation with the title of Criterion, or sometimes Criteria, which is not really the right translation, because the Spanish criterio means sound judgment, even common sense. If you speak and deliberate with criterio, you're using sound judgment, common sense. Okay, so I've been translating all day parts of this, because I couldn't find any translation, the actual book in translation. I don't know whether it has been. There are some in other books on theology, on philosophy. He has a marvelous book on the difference between Protestantism and Catholicism. Excellent, excellent author. But this is about how to think well, with sound judgment, and how, and this will be at the end of the video, well, sort of from the second part of the video, how to find that talent in a child and promote that talent with which he was born in order to choose better his career, his profession in later life. So also kind of ahead in, a philosophy of education. Of course, this is going to be a very short summary, but let's see what you think. He starts, I'm going to be reading, pretending that I'm not reading, but I will be reading and you will see it. But what does thinking well mean? What is it? Thinking well means directing your understanding towards the path that leads to truth. Directing your understanding towards the path that leads to truth. The truth of a thing is the reality of such thing. When we know that something as it is in itself, we know the truth of it. And we don't know the truth, the reality of it. When we don't know it, we make a mistake and fall into error. When something is true, we know it. We recognize it as such. When we know, speaking to a younger audience, when we know that respect for parents, obedience to the laws, good faith in contracts, fidelity to friends, when we know all these are virtues, we know the truth. And by the same token, we'd be making a mistake if we thought that duplicity and treachery, ingratitude, injustice, intemperance were good and worthy of praise. If we want to think well, we must try to get to the truth. That's our aim. And that means we must get to know the reality of things. What use is it otherwise to be debating endlessly, using ever more subtle ways of argumentation? Their depth is only apparent, superficial. If our thoughts, our argumentation, our aim is not to get to the reality, the truth of the thing, what's the point of that? The words in that debate are the tools we have to explain ideas. Other professions have other tools, and those tools are being used too in those professions to get to the truth, the reality of that thing they are involved in. This is what I mean. A simple peasant, a modest craftsman, they get to know very well the tools of their profession and can tell you about them much, much better than any presumptuous professor displaying lofty concepts in high-sounding words, pretending to give them lessons about things he doesn't really understand. Point 2. Different ways to get to know the truth of things. Sometimes we do know the truth about a given something, but we know that truth in rather a crude way. I mean, the reality of something does not appear to our eyes as it is. we don't see it as it is, not as it really is. Something is missing here. Something has been added here or taken away. They are not the complete truth, the whole truth, because they are not the complete whole reality of the thing. They have been altered in some aspect, and so they are not the truth. An example. Imagine a situation when you see far in the distance what appears to be a military formation of column of soldiers. There they are, far in the distance. You see that they are soldiers, that's for sure. You can see their shining rifles, but you cannot see clearly one important aspect of the whole thing, and that is their uniform. And that makes a great deal of difference as to what you can assume, what you know, the reality of the thing. What you do know is that over there, far in the distance, there is a bunch of armed soldiers, all right? But what you don't know is if those soldiers are your countrymen or not. You see, in this case, your knowledge is imperfect, incomplete, because you would need to see their uniforms to know who they represent. You could make another mistake also because of this distance and confuse their uniforms and assume that they are wearing a type of uniform they are in fact not wearing. So your knowledge is imperfect here too, because in this case you are adding something that is not in fact there. If we mistake one thing for another and think something is white when it's in fact yellow, we change the reality of the thing and end up with something different. Something that is not the truth of the thing, the reality of the thing, what the thing in fact really is, regardless of what your understanding of it is. When we know the truth of a thing perfectly, completely, our understanding of it is like a mirror in which we see faithfully portrayed from all angles, from all sides, things as they really are in themselves. When we make a mistake, however, it's more like one of those illusory tricks that you find in fairs, which pretend to show you something that is not really there. Or other times we know only half of the truth, or the truth only halfway. That's like seeing yourself in a mirror that sure reflects you, but reflects you in a distorted way. Your size is all wrong, your figure is changed, you're much taller, much shorter, much fatter, much thinner, altering the reality, the truth of what you really are like. A person who thinks well sees in an object all that is there, from all sides, no more than it is there, and no less than it is there either. Some people have a disposition to see far too much when there is nothing there, while others see nothing when there really is. Take some news, an event, something that will undoubtedly supply some people with much material to talk about, material ample enough to engage in profuse debate about it. What they see is all those castles in the air. I suppose we would say castles in Spain. that their minds are erecting, all manner of them. These people project. They are great projectionists, charlatans. Others, on the other hand, are the opposite. They see well, but they see only a portion of the thing, whatever it is. They see it only from one angle. They see the thing all right, but only from this one side. And if this side crumbles, they see nothing. These people are usually the sententious types, judgmental. They will cling to that stand that they've taken, no matter what. In fact, these people are like those who have never been outside their own village and the environment they're used to, and just can't possibly accept there is another world beyond. A clear understanding of the thing, competent, accurate, covers the whole of the thing. It looks at it from all sides, and besides, and this is important, sees it also in context with its surroundings. The conversation and writings of some of these privileged individuals who are able to see the whole thing, things wholly, from all sides, stand out, these speakers, for their clarity, precision, accuracy. In every word they speak, you will find a kernel of an idea, and this idea you will find corresponds to the reality of the thing. They teach us, they convince us, they leave us satisfied with their arguments and their conclusions. We cry almost instinctively in full agreement, yes, that's true, you're right. And the amazing thing is that to understand their speech, and this is the amazing part, you need no special effort. As when you're walking along an even pathway, the speaker will guide you, and if there is an obstacle, a rock, a pothole, he'll point it out. He doesn't hide it. And you see, in this way, when he's explaining a complex, tortuous subject, difficult to understand, he'll save us much effort and fatigue on our part. Because the subject is complex, our path to understanding it seems dark, intricate, obscure, as if we were walking along the very bowels of the earth, walking along underground tunnels. But this guide, who is telling you the truth, will always walk in front of you, pointing the way, carrying, as it were, a torch in his hand that shines brightly for you to see clearly. Number 3, our professions, careers. As I said, the tools of our profession are also essential instruments to get to the truth, again, the reality of the thing. Some have a scientific disposition, some people in the practical arena, we now call it practical intelligence. Others are better disposed with a certain prudence, ideal, one would say, to conduct the management and affairs of state, to be great statesmen. In all professions, we'll have more or less an advantage in proportion to the greater or lesser knowledge we have of the tools at our disposal necessary to deal with the thing. This is what I mean. This is knowledge put into practice, and we must learn how to apply it. And for that, we need not just one whole, all-encompassing single truth, but also many small little truths, let's call it that. Little details that we can't ignore. If we want to get to that whole truth, that is, the reality of the thing, these small little truths are many in number. Listen to those occupied in manual labor. For example, who is the best farmer? Well, the one that best knows about the quality of the soil, the climate, seeds, plants, the one who knows which are the best methods and tools to work the land, who best uses them at the right time. In a word, the one who knows how to work towards getting a good harvest, economically, promptly, well. The best farmer is, then, the farmer who knows more truths relating to the putting into practice the knowledge of his profession. And who is the best carpenter? Yes, the one who knows the nature and quality of different wood, the best way to work different kinds of wood well, and the art of using each type for its purpose. That is, the best carpenter is the one who knows more truths about his art. And who is the best trader? This is written in 1850, okay? The one who best knows his products, where to get them from, the best means to get them to his clientele without deterioration, quickly and cheaply, and sell them quickly and profitably. That is the one who has more truths about the objects of trade, the one who knows in greater depth the reality of the things he's dealing with. Thinking well is essential to all of us, not only of interest to philosophers, ordinary folk as well. Think of your capacity to know and understand as a precious gift given to you by your Creator, our Creator. It is a light given to you to guide you in your actions. One of our principal concerns should be to have this light directed in the right way, though. If you don't use this light well, you'll be left in the dark. You'll be groping around in darkness. Don't ever let this light be extinguished. Don't leave your capacity to understand become inactive, dangerously becoming obsolete, or turn you into an imbecile. To animate it, to enliven it, it's essential. In order to do this, it's essential that this light be good, a good light, not so much as to dazzle us with its splendor, but just focused in the right direction so as not to lose our way to get to the truth. 4. How to teach thinking well. How to think well. Teach how to think well. This art of thinking well is not learned so much by rules, but with models. Those who insist in teaching by dint of precepts and analytical formulations, and insist in teaching this way, I compare them to those teaching children to speak and walk by means of grammar and physics. I'm not condemning rules, But I do sustain that they should be imparted with a little more, let's say, parsimony, not in such haste, with less philosophical pretensions, and above all, in a simple, straightforward way, a practical way, and always, if you impart a rule, follow it up with an appropriate example. A child mispronounces certain words. To correct him, what do parents or teachers do? Well, they first pronounce them themselves properly, and then they will say something like, now, let's see how you do it now. You try. Yes, of course, you could give directions to the child as how to move his lips and tongue correctly, but in any case, here is the rule, here is the example. This is the rule, and this is the way to practice that rule. 5. Attention, paying attention. There are ways that lead us to knowledge of truth, and also obstacles that prevent us from getting there. The art of thinking well is to teach good ways to get there and to see the obstacles in the way and remove them. 6. What does attention mean and why is it necessary? Paying attention is the application of the mind to an object. The application of the mind to an object. The very first means to thinking well is to pay attention. Pay attention. A tree cannot be cut well unless the saw is well applied for this aim. Harvesting crops requires the good use of the sickle. Sometimes the mind is presented with things, and yet it doesn't pay a minimum of attention to them. And so sometimes we see without looking, and we hear without listening. So of course, the knowledge that you're going to get out of this situation is always going to be light, superficial, sometimes inaccurate, often mistaken, erroneous knowledge. When we don't pay attention, we are distracted. Our spirit is, so to speak, somewhere else, and therefore it does not see what is being shown to it. It is essential to get into the habit of concentrating our attention to what is being studied or listened to or what is being done. Because many times when we fall short in our comprehension of something, it is not because we lack the ability to know what we see or read or hear, but we lack the application to that which we are seeing or reading or hearing. Someone is telling us something, relating or explaining something, say, and we are listening to this narration, but listening with loose attention. Our mind is somewhere else, and consequently we are going to miss interesting points and not notice what might be essential details. And so what we end up with is a disfigured notion of what it was about that we were being told. It's incomplete, and that's how we make mistakes. As I said, not always from an inherent lack of ability, but because we don't pay enough attention. 6. The advantages of paying attention and drawbacks at not doing so. An attentive mind multiplies its power of comprehension and understanding in an astonishing way. Taking advantage of the time given, it amasses a wealth of ideas. It perceives them with more clarity, more exactitude, and at the end remembers them more easily, because when our attention is focused, the ideas that come with that are going to place themselves in our mind in a much better organized manner. If we are only loosely attentive, it's as if you've just taken your mind out for a walk somewhere. You're there listening, receiving, but really receiving an impression here, an impression there, accumulating a whole range of different unconnected impressions that, far from helping each other in clarity and retention, the mind gets confused, muddled, and they end up actually cancelling each other out. There is no reading, no conversation, no event, however insignificant we may judge it, that cannot teach us something. Well, when we pay attention, we notice each little wonder and gather them all. And when, alternatively, attention is lacking, it's as if we are letting all these gold and pearls and jewels fall onto the ground, as if they were all simple trinkets. 8. What kind of attention? Going to talk about the scatterbrain and the absent-minded. There are those who think that paying continuous attention is very tiring. No, it's not. They are wrong. When I say focusing your attention, I'm not speaking about that fastness, a certain rigidity that practically nails the mind to what is being said. No, I'm referring rather to a gentle, restful application of the mind that allows you to take in each thing that is being said or done, but leaves you at the same time with the necessary agility to move effortlessly from one issue to another. 9. Relaxation of the mind. This attention is not incompatible with enjoyment or fun, because it is clear the relaxation of the mind does not consist in not thinking, but rather in not occupying yourself continually with strenuous thoughts, and allowing yourself time and space to think and give yourself to other thoughts, lighter, simpler. The wise man who takes a break from his deep studies and goes out for a while to enjoy the countryside, he doesn't get fatigued, doesn't close his mind in order to have a rest. Rather, he distracts himself observing the harvest being gathered, the good farmers over there working the land. He's open to the murmur of water in brooks and streams. He listens to the birds singing. His mind is still active, very active in fact, but in a different, less strenuous way. I am far from viewing attention as something severe, a continual abstraction of the mind. Not at all. On the contrary, for me, when I talk about distracted people, I call them the distracted. I include both. Not only the scatterbrain, incapable of holding a thought together, but also the absent-minded. And they're not only professors. You see, the scatterbrain will spill themselves outwards, not knowing where they are half the time. The absent-minded spill themselves inwards, wandering about as they do through those dark internal regions of theirs. Both lack appropriate focus, the one needed to pay attention to what is at hand. Besides, the attentive person has the quality of being more civilized, more polite, having good manners. This is an addition. Because other people's sense of self-importance makes them feel injured or hurt when they notice that others are not paying attention to what they're saying. And it is a well-known fact that good manners, or lack of them, go also by the surname of attention or inattention. 10. Interruptions. There are only some few rare cases, even in serious study, that require such deep concentration all the time and to such an extent that cannot possibly be interrupted ever without causing some injury. Again, this is not only about professors. Many people complain bitterly about an unexpected visit or noise, which has cut off, as they say, their thread of thought, as if they were those patterns for engraving and copying, where the slightest movement of one object over the other or the interposition of either is enough to spoil the engraving or copying of a portrait or a landscape. In some way, it might be a natural deficiency. In others, it might also be some pure, vain affectation of theirs for many reasons. And in more than a few, it's simply a case of not being used to focusing or keeping your attention going for any length of time. Be that as it may, it is good we get used to having both a strong and a flexible ability of attention at the same time, and try to manage it so that the formation of concepts and ideas in our minds does not resemble those patterns of copying and engraving where nothing, not even an inch, can be moved. 11. Advising the child, choosing a career, talents, gifts. Okay, the word is vague, talent. Needless to say, young people should devote themselves to choosing the profession or career for which they find themselves best equipped. That's obvious. But this involves having identified what your talent is, to start walking in the direction that is most suitable to your talent, for your talent to be exercised. I judge this an extremely important factor and harbor the deep conviction that not enough attention is paid to it when people are young or children. And it is precisely this inattention The reason why so many people have not advanced more in the arts or the sciences or whatever the field might be. Some people understand the word talent in a way that expresses, as a word that expresses that this person is talented generally, that he has a general ability towards all things, believing mistakenly that if he is endowed with one felicitous disposition towards one thing, he will be equally disposed towards the others. Nothing could be more false. A man can be outstanding, extraordinary, have an immense ability in one field, and be very average or even useless in another. Napoleon and Descartes were two geniuses, very different geniuses. The genius in war would have not understood the genius in philosophy at all. And should they have conversed a while, it is highly probable that each would have left the other rather unsatisfied. Descartes for Napoleon would be one of those he so flagrantly waved off as ideologues. One could write such an extensive thesis providing evidence about these profound differences. Everyday experience shows us that this is so in very palpable ways. We hear of men who discourse and dispute or act admirably in one given subject, and yet in another they show themselves rather average, even clumsy. Few people you'll find excellent in all things, perhaps nobody. Our experience shows us that diverse aptitudes actually, having those many diverse aptitudes actually might block, hinder, damage each other. Whoever has more of a generalist aptitude is not likely to have the same talent for precise exactitude. The poet who lives off such sublime, almost sublime inspiration will not be as adept in the study of geometry. 12. On that instinct that tells us the best profession to follow. The Creator has endowed men with different faculties in varying degrees. A precious instinct that indicates to us what our destiny might be, should be. That natural inclination we all have towards something constant, long-lasting, tells us that we were born with an aptitude, a talent for it. And that reluctance, horror sometimes, that we feel towards something, and which, however much we tried, we cannot get rid of, we just dislike it, is a sign that the Creator has not granted us with that happy disposition, and that's why we find it unpleasant. 13. Parents, teachers, directors of educational establishments should pay close attention here to prevent that waste of a talent which, when well employed, could give the most precious fruits, and avoid wasting the child's efforts on a task for which he was not born. The child himself knows this. A child between, say, 10, 12 years of age most often is already well equipped to notice that something for which he is well disposed. What task comes effortlessly to him, which studies he's good at and advances in more easily. The tasks where he exhibits easily more creativity and skill. How to discern a child's talent. Open up several possibilities to him. For example, expose the children to different activities. Take them to different establishments or places where you can observe each child's natural talents. Show them different topics, different areas of study, and then let them loose to their own devices, as it were, for a while. An intelligent observer will notice immediately different classifications and ranks, different aptitudes, different interests. Gather a group of 10 to 12-year-old children, open a watch and show them its intricate machinery. If among them there is one with a particular scientific bent, for sure he will make himself known to you simply by his natural curiosity. He will come closer to the watch to observe. He will ask questions. He will understand easily what is going on, how it works. Now, read a poem to those same children, 10 to 12-year-olds. Is there among them a potential Lope de Vega, Garcilaso, Calderon? Sorry, these are Spanish poets. Okay, is there a potential Milton, Byron, Shakespeare? If there is, you will see it immediately. The sparkle in this child's eyes. You will almost hear his heart beating fast. His mind is agitated. His imagination is aflamed with something that he himself doesn't understand. So be careful, because if you were to change the roles of these two extraordinary children, you will be educating them simply to be two average men. The eagle and the swallow are different according to the strength and the lightness of their wings. And yet, the eagle will never fly like the swallow flies, or the swallow imitate the queen of birds. To keep trying to teach these children for many years what they cannot naturally sustain, what their shoulders cannot carry. Perhaps we should bear in mind what Horace, the poet, Roman poet, wanted to impress on writers. Perhaps we could equally apply it to those choosing their vocation in life. And I will finish with this. This is a very small quote from Horace, advising people who wanted to write. He says, well, it's very long, but just one little thing. Ye who write, make choice of a subject suitable to your abilities, and revolve in your thoughts a considerable time what your strength declines and what is able to support. Neither elegance of style nor a perspicuous disposition, shall desert the man by whom the subject matter is chosen judiciously. Okay. All right, so this is it. This is it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.